Welcome to NewsNation's Backscroll, where we look back at our major news coverage on the most important topics and personalities of our time.
Joining us again is Jillian Michaels, along with Callie Means, a former lobbyist for the food and pharmaceutical industry, now a critic of drugs like Ozempic. We also have two doctors who support the use of the drug who will join us. But Jillian, let me start with you. Just lay it out for us. What do you think the media and so many in the medical community are getting wrong here?
Well, first of all, every benefit that you just outlined is a halo effect of weight loss. And in fact, even in the studies where they tout heart-healthy benefits and they claim that it's 20%, that's a relative risk. It's not an absolute risk. In other words, the absolute risk is 1.5% in a decrease in major cardiac events. It's nominal, and they cannot point to a mechanism with the medication outside of weight loss that facilitates that. It does slow the progression of chronic kidney disease, but that's in patients with chronic kidney disease. We all know that kidneys filter medication out of the body, so the bigger question is, how is it impacting the people that take it who don't have chronic kidney disease? On top of that, you can lose weight by eating less, using some common sense with your food choices, and moving more with no negative side effects, all of which do include pancreatitis, intestinal blockage, stomach paralysis, thyroid cancer, gallbladder issues, biliary disease, vision problems. Callie? Off to you.
Dan, I think the important question to ask is what's the problem and what's the appropriate solution for that problem? The problem in America is that 50% of young adults are overweight or obese, and it's almost 80% of adults. And why has this happened? It's happened because of our ultra-processed food system. Few people know this, but the cigarette industry was actually the two largest food companies in the world in the 1990s were cigarette companies, R.J. Reynolds and Philip Morris. And they systematically shifted scientists over from cigarette companies to food companies to make our food addictive. They shifted their lobbyists to, make the food pyramid, which was really a processed food marketing document. And today, 70% of a child's diet is ultra-processed food that is designed literally by cigarette industry scientists to be addictive. And we have an obesity crisis that's unique in America. It's 3% childhood obesity in Japan. And instead of asking about this poisoned environment, instead of doctors speaking out about that, now the guidelines from the American Academy of Pediatrics is that if your 12-year-old is overweight, this is the first line defense. It's not wait and see. It's not try to get them on a better diet. It's the first line defense. We all need to understand this. The reason Novo Nordisk is paying so much money on advertising, the reason they're one of the top 10 lobbying spenders in DC, right? It's the reason they are one of the top 10 most valuable companies in the world right now, the most valuable company in Europe. It's an expectation of the US taxpayer paying for these obesity drugs for life for the median teenager and adult in this country. The reason this debate is so important is because we have a moment to ask, is the result of this chronic metabolic dysfunction that's causing skyrocketing cancer rates, diabetes rates, heart disease rates, obesity rates, kidney disease rates, is that an Ozempic deficiency, or is there something deeper going on?
But
and it is that the medical system isn't talking about the root cause.
But Kelly, let me ask you, can't it be both things? I mean, can't we both have a problem with the amount of processed foods people are eating in this country, right? And say, okay, we got to address that. And the idea that these weight loss drugs can also be incredibly effective.
Dan, the reason this is the 10th most valuable company in the world is because they are expecting the U.S. taxpayer on Medicare and Medicaid to
But
pay.
that's not an answer to my question, really.
It is. Well, I have a question for you.
Yes.
You have $1,600 per obese American per month. What percentage of that should go to an injection of a poison into a child, and what percentage of that should go to fixing our food supply? The first marginal dollars to address obesity should go to fixing our food supply. That is what doctors should be talking about. It can happen a lot cheaper than $60 per patient.
But again,
Dan, you're making a false question, quite frankly, Dan.
It's a false question. Think about how simple the question I asked you is. Really, I'm going to ask it again because it's so simple that I can't even believe you're saying it's a false question. All I asked was, can't they do both? Can't it both be true? If your answer is no, that's fine. All I'm asking is, isn't it possible that we do have a processed food problem in this country that ought to be addressed better? And isn't it also possible that these weight loss drugs are also incredibly effective? Why is that a false question?
Dan, these are great questions. If you have $1,600 for an obese American, what percentage would you put to drugs? What percentage would you put to fixing
again, I don't know why you keep talking about the government spending on it. I'm asking, does it work? Is it good for people? I'm not talking about government spending. Jillian, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. So first of all, does it work? Great question. So we know that on semaglutide, right, which is Wegovy, you can lose up to 15% of your body weight. That's great, but if you're morbidly obese, it really isn't that much. In other words, if you're 300 pounds, it's 45 pounds. So you get to 255. And then guess what happens, Dan? You plateau. In every single study, people plateau between weeks 62 and 78. And the bottom line is you've got nowhere to go, and then you're stuck on this forever. Now, on drugs like tirzepatide, you can lose 20 to 23%, which is higher and better. And they're working on King Kong agonists that work on 3 hormonal pathways to help you lose a little bit more. But guess what? We can facilitate 15% weight loss in faster than that time frame by simply creating a moderate calorie reduction and having a step goal every day. And then guess what? All of the negatives, like the overwhelming cost, the unbelievable side effects, over 50% of people will experience diarrhea, constipation. And let's also look at the body as a complex system. Just think about this for a second. When you delay gastric emptying and food sits in the gut for, oh my God, days. In fact, gastroenterologists are having to rewrite the protocols for anesthesia because people are they're puking in surgery and getting bacterial pneumonia. I mean, it's bananas. Does it work to a point?
Hang on, I want to bring in Dr. Sue Dakotas, a medical weight loss physician in New York, and Dr. Jonathan Kaplan. He's a board-certified plastic surgeon in San Francisco. He's the CEO and founder of weight management platform Build My Health. Doctor, you've been sitting here, Dr. Dakota, shaking your head. Let me at least give you a chance, because as I said to Jillian, as she was, talking to me, regaling me with all these studies, which she knows about, I don't. I'm not an expert in this area. You were shaking your head. Why?
Well, I am a board-certified weight loss specialist, and I was practicing internal medicine for many years before I did weight loss medicine. And I was so frustrated with the fact that patients couldn't take weight off no matter what they did. So when I have a patient that comes to my office, and I take a good history, and they tell me, doctor, I'm eating organically, I eat really well, I exercise every day, and I just can't get this weight off. Many of the patients that we're talking about have good lifestyle. They're not eating junk food, okay? No doubt, Dr. Means is right about we do have a toxic environment. And it's not just our food, it's our water, it's in our soil, et cetera, et cetera. But the bottom line that we're dealing with here is insulin resistance, okay? Now, that is the result of perhaps poor diet, but often genetics, hormonal changes, perimenopause, menopause, low testosterone, stress, and genetic factors as well. So what I have to deal with is fix the insulin resistance. If these people could do it at the gym and they could do it with a good keto diet or something like that, they wouldn't be seeing me.
Well, but Jillian's point was all this drug does is it reduces effectively appetite, right? And her point is you can reduce your intake of food in other ways, is the argument she made to me.
So that is only one of the mechanisms of action.
Hang on. Yep. Go ahead.
Okay, that's only one of the mechanisms of action. What we do in my practice is that we follow each patient carefully with a body composition scale. And if this therapy is effective, and under my guidance it is, what we see is a reduction in body fat. So if you're just looking at somebody's weight, Dan, and you're not looking at their body fat percentage, you have no idea what's going on. So the key to long-term weight loss and getting people off this drug is making sure that the body fat percentage decreases. And that often doesn't happen if physician is not able to follow somebody with a body composition scale.
Dr. Kaplan, I'm going to bring you in a second. I want to give Jillian an opportunity to respond. Go ahead, Jillian. Yeah.
Okay. Number one, the carbohydrate insulin model of obesity has been debunked, and I highly recommend everybody go check out the work of Dr. Lane Norton or Dr. Joey Munoz, who have their PhD in nutrition science. To deny that it's calories in, calories out denies physics. But even if we played your little game about insulin, which I'm more than happy to do you know the best way to resensitize the body to insulin is exercise and not eating ultra-processed carbs? And guess what else? If you look historically at people who've lost weight without these drugs that had advanced type 2 diabetes and were on things like metformin, why isn't metformin then a weight loss phenomena? Because it doesn't stop you from overeating. And I've helped people lose hundreds of pounds for 3 decades without GLP-1 drugs. So your
I have to jump in.
data,
Right,
your position does not hold up.
Hang on,
Just
go ahead,
doesn't.
and then I got to get Dr. Kaplan in. Yeah, go ahead, quickly.
So if you're extremely insulin resistant, Jillian, and you should know this, okay? Insulin does not deliver
Yes.
sugar to the tissues, so somebody can't get a good workout. That could lower their metabolism. They're going to feel really, really tired. Their blood sugar levels are going to fluctuate, and they're going to become very hungry. Some people cannot do it with diet and exercise, and you're not going to know that unless you're a weight loss physician.
Dr. Kaplan, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So you're coming back.
I got to let
to
Dr.
hunger?
Kaplan in.
Again, you're.
Dr. Kaplan, go ahead.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, these are the biggest things since penicillin, and just all the things that you mentioned at the beginning of the segment, that it's the reversing chronic kidney disease, fatty liver, maybe slowing the progression of Parkinson's, reducing the incidence of 13 different obesity-related cancers. So, in fact, it may actually be better than penicillin because penicillin only introduced antibiotics to fight infection. These really are amazing medications. And I get Jillian's reticence because it's affecting her livelihood and probably the other people who are on the call. But the truth is,
Oh,
these
my God, this is
medications
good.
are amazing,
Oh, boy.
and both things.
Okay,
This is a good
actually,
stuff.
aren't you the one who
Both things
profits
can
off
be
of it? I
true.
think
You
you're
can't
the
fix
one who
supply.
does. I
You
could
can't
sell
fix
Hang on, one at a time.
easily on
Jillian, I promise I'll give you a
like
chance to
Weight
respond. Hang
Watchers.
on, guys, we got to do one at a time or I'm going to have to start killing mics. A final thought, Dr.
Sir?
Kaplan, then I'm going to let Jillian respond.
Certainly, diet and exercise are absolutely part of this whole situation, but also these medications. So I think these personal trainers should embrace it. If you can't beat them, join them. And you should explain to patients, don't be fear-mongering that, oh, you shouldn't use these medications. But no, you should combine diet and exercise with these medications.
All right, Jillian, you get to
certainly.
decide whether you or Callie respond because you both want to
Number
respond.
one, it doesn't reverse. It does not reverse chronic kidney disease. It slows progression. But do you know what does reverse or prevent chronic kidney disease? Exercise by 33%. And I sent those studies over to Dan's team this morning. That said, if I wanted to sell the drug, I could. I have a weight loss app. I have an entire business. It's telehealth medicine. It'd be the easiest thing in the world, just like Weight Watchers does, just like Noom does. I chose not to because I have integrity, unlike you and Dr. Sakotis, who make
Poor
your
decision.
money this way.
Poor decision.
Poor decision.
I
Okay,
got
well, you know
We
what?
get
I'm
people
happy to be on the
who
right side of history.
Hang on. Is it possible? Wait, hang on. Everyone,
Tell me
hang on a
something.
second.
So,
Isn't it
and all that-
possible?
wait,
Calling the kettle black,
second,
Wait,
all
guys,
the benefits that you
Can we
mentioned
stop
are
mics
halo
for a
effect
second?
of weight loss. This
Okay,
doesn't
guys,
stop
we have to go one at a time. I'm sorry. But isn't it possible, and I'm going to let Callie respond because he's been wanting to get in here, but isn't it possible that neither of you are acting in bad faith? I mean, isn't it possible that the doctors who are doing this have seen the studies, they're convinced that it's working, and isn't it possible that, Jillian, your position, and it sounds like maybe this isn't Callie's position, but your position is that we ought to be focusing on exercise first, we ought to be focusing on diet first, we ought to, and I think everyone kind of agrees that's the initial place to start. The question becomes, if the doctors believe that that isn't working, and it doesn't work for a lot of people, why shouldn't this drug be the next choice? Callie, go ahead.
Yeah. I think this is very important. Let's not get into motivations. Let's just look at the economic facts. For the medical profession, for the obesity medicine profession, there's nothing more profitable than an obese, sick child. A child that learns to exercise and learns to eat is not going to the doctor's office, is not getting a lifetime prescription, is not getting lifetime doctor's appointments. And to correct one of the things the doctor said, this is on the box a lifetime drug. This is the instruction. She's actually going against medical advice to say that people should be getting off this drug. That's not the situation. It's the gold mine. This is a gold mine for the medical industry because it's a lifetime recurring annuity. And let's just look at the facts. Let's just look at the facts. The Novo Nordisk is one of the top funders of the American Academy of Diabetes, the American Academy of Pediatrics. Okay. They have funded the research. They have paid Dr. Fatima Cody Stanford.
Let me ask you about that, Callie, because you focus on the funding of research a lot, right? Isn't just about every drug that's tested funded in some way, shape, or form by Big Pharma? I mean, everything from antibiotics to every single drug starts with Big Pharma studies, and then they're reviewed by third parties and by doctors. I mean, I think that argument seems like a little bit of a false argument. Oh, the study was done by Big Pharma. Just about every study of drugs starts with Big Pharma. No, Callie?
Well, a couple let's just unpack there, Dan. One is I would ask whether chronic disease pharmaceutical treatments have been effective, whether statins have lowered heart disease, whether metformin has lowered diabetes, whether SSRIs have lowered depression, and why JP Morgan, when they estimate the next 10 years of Ozempic, they assume obesity is actually going to increase as more Ozempic is prescribed. I'd ask you whether it's appropriate that Novo Nordisk has paid consulting fees, maybe to the doctors on the show, 420,000 individual consulting fees, not research grants, consulting fees.
Dr. Kaplan, go ahead.
I am not getting paid by Big Pharma. I just want to make that clear. We're offering the compounded versions of these medications from FDA-registered manufacturers and compounding pharmacies that have licenses in the states where we send the medications. The name brand drug is just too expensive. It's too hard to get, and only about 23% of insurance plans cover it. So we've had a lot of great success with the compounded versions. And the fact is that by law, when there is a shortage, the FDA allows compounding pharmacies to make a duplicate. So by law, it's got to be a duplicate. We're not producing some quasi knockoff, the things you hear in the news about, these are research grade meds. That's a separate thing that you can get those without a prescription. Those are not meant for human use. But our entire supply chain is legit. But most importantly, I'm not getting paid by Big Pharma because I'm not using their medication.
Ozempic and similar drugs are changing people's lives. The question is, for better or for worse long term. There's no question that people are losing all kinds of weight all over the country. And it's gone from an injection, now they're pill forms coming out, so you got to expect it's only going to grow in popularity. Patients who have taken the medications, though, are coming forward to complain of symptoms and side effects that are negative. The most recent one is even severe paralysis of the stomach and debilitating gastric issues. One of them is 38-year-old Emily Wright. She's a teacher in Toronto. She started taking Ozempic in 2018. Okay, I know this is new for a lot of us, but this has been going on because she's a diabetic, you see. Ozempic is a drug for diabetes, all right? The weight loss is a new phenomenon as people have learned that when you go on it for diabetes, you also tend to lose weight, and she has. And she has enjoyed great weight loss, almost half her body weight, by the way. So she's on the drug for about a year. All of a sudden, she starts to have real gastric issues. I'm talking she is vomiting daily, hospitalized repeatedly. And doctors eventually told her she had a paralyzed stomach. Now, the question is, on the doc side, and we're going to talk to her, what took so long? Then you have the secondary question, which is what happened to her something that could happen to you? Joining us now is Emily Wright. Emily, thank you for joining us and for telling your story.
Thanks for having me.
First things first, how you doing?
Today is one of my better days. I'm not doing too poorly today. Every day is a new adventure.
Where are you in your treatment in terms of getting the symptoms under control, getting your digestion, or what the doctors will call peristalsis, that whole process, back under control?
I think the biggest challenge with this is the understanding that nobody knows when I'm going to get better. Is it going to be a year? Is it going to be 2 years? Is it going to be 10? Or am I going to be like this forever? Because no research yet exists on the long-term consequences of the drug Ozempic. So I am currently taking many medications to try to speed up my motility of my stomach. I take nausea medications on a daily basis. I also have to take nausea meds as soon as I get out of bed if I want to be able to function to some capacity that day. My vomiting has slowed down a little bit recently, but it's still a problem. So when I say slow down a little bit, some days I vomit 5 or 6 times a day instead of 20 times a day. But each day comes with its own challenges and new symptoms.
How special do you believe you are in terms of having this kind of result from using Ozempic?
Yeah, Chris, nobody told me that Ozempic could cause gastroparesis or that it could have all of these side effects. As a diabetic, I was told that this could help control my blood sugar, and that just like any medication we start, sometimes we have side effects. And once we get used to that medication, normally those side effects subside. Mine never subsided. And when I first started Ozempic, sure, it was a few times that I vomited and I sort of thought, this sucks, but you know what? The weight loss is worth it. Flash forward to a year later, I'm hospitalized and I was unable to get out of bed. I had to stop my job, stop working. So it's scary that there's no research to know when I'm going to get better and what that looks like.
Do the doctors say that they believe that what happened with you is a function of you being diabetic or just the drug's effect on your body?
Yeah, so it's the effect of the drug on my body. Gastroparesis can also be caused by diabetes. However, my diabetes was very newly diagnosed at the time. My blood sugars and my A1C have always been able to stay between 5.9 and a 6.2, which as a diabetic shows that my blood levels are controlled. So we know that I didn't get gastroparesis from being a diabetic. What we don't know is what was my gut motility before I started Ozempic. We still don't know that. Maybe I already had slow digestion, and maybe putting me on Ozempic just destroyed my digestive system and my GI tract. That I don't know, but I do know that Ozempic is when all of these symptoms started for me and have continued.
Drugs like Ozempic have changed the weight loss game. It's easy to forget that they were originally actually meant to treat diabetes. But now we're learning they can be saving lives in a whole new way. There was a new 3-year study, apparently shows a similar class of drugs called semaglutides are working wonders for type 2 diabetes patients. The study found patients who get weekly injections show a 24% drop in kidney disease issues. Their risk of death dropped by 20%, and they had 18% fewer heart attacks and heart issues. Dr. Jorge Rodriguez is an internist and gastroenterology specialist who has prescribed these drugs. He joins me live now. Dr. Rodriguez, thank you for being with me. For a while I was thinking, gosh, are these drugs just like too good to be true? All these people are losing weight. It makes it look so easy. But now it makes you wonder, like, is this actually a wonder drug now that we've got this new study out?
Well, I wouldn't call them wonder drugs, but they definitely are revolutionizing how diabetes is being treated. We need to remember, first of all, that this study was done on diabetics. So we can't extrapolate and say, hey, these results are going to be the same for people that are using Wegovy, Ozempic for weight loss. And one of the major side effects of having diabetes long-term is that it does damage the kidneys. That sugar that's floating around keeps floating and damaging those very small arteries that are the kidneys. So the fact that this medication has shown to actually change the cause of death in many people that have diabetes, actually, it is a wonder.
Yeah, I didn't realize. I was reading the stats, Doc. 1 in 3 people with diabetes also have chronic kidney disease. So it's very, very common. Is this the kind of drug that, everyone with diabetes should try to get on?
Well, you have to take this with a grain of salt. The study also said, at the end that all of these other people were also on other medications, including Ozempic. Now, there was an arm where they didn't have Ozempic at all. So the question is going to be, where does this fit in sort of the quiver, of what we use, of the arrows that we use to treat diabetes? Because right now, Ozempic and this type of medication is not the first line of medications. We start with different ones. And then somewhere down the line, if things don't work, we put on Ozempic. Now, the question is, are we going to start using this earlier because we know it has greater benefits?
In terms of the weight loss issue, Doc, what do you think about using Ozempic for weight loss? Because I know all these people, you know, they need to lose 10, 15 pounds. And instead of doing it the hard way, and I'm not talking like really obese people, I'm just talking people that like have a belly or whatever. And instead of, you know, exercising, they go and they get Ozempic and they lose all this weight. And sometimes they get so skinny, it's almost freaky. Like they get too skinny. What do you think about it for weight loss in those situations?
All right. Well, first of all, the branding of Ozempic for weight loss is called Wegovy. It's neither here nor there because it's the same thing. And I think that what you are alluding to is correct. I think there is a lot of abuse of this drug for people that have minor amount of weight gain, you know, a little bit overweight. The actual recommendations for this type of medication for weight loss is people have to have a BMI, which is a basal mass index of greater than 27. Your doctor can tell you what that means. And you have to have at least 1 or 2 criteria for heart disease. So I agree with you. And I think it's overused in a certain segment of the population. We don't know the long-term side effects of this. A lot of people that have been on it, you're right, they look disfigured. And we know that these medications lose certain muscle that you're not going to regain. So yeah, you end up, a lot of people end up looking freaky. And it's hard to tell them that because they're so into the fact that they've lost weight. So this is a double-edged sword. I mean, I think I talked to Chris about this a couple of years ago, and the fact that we don't know the long-term side effects. The original studies were just like a year, you know, in length. So be careful, you know, with anything that is a wonder drug.
Yeah, it's good advice. And the Ozempic face, I mean, it's real. You see some of these celebrities, even people that I know. I mean, I think they either take too much or just lose a little bit of weight, but they get that Ozempic face. They look so freaky. So it's good advice. We don't know exactly how it'll all pan out. Dr. Jorge Rodriguez, thank you so much for coming on. I hope you have a good holiday weekend.
But it does highlight the celebrity craze. Ozempic, and now it's just not for the celebrities anymore. Everybody's taking it. It's intended to treat type 2 diabetes. Takes weight off, no question, a lot of it, and fast. And we keep covering this story for you because it reeks of too good to be true. But we need to understand that medically. Now, it's not about feelings, it's got to be about facts, right? And now, what's this about people trying to make it at home? Dr. Mark Hyman is the host of the podcast, The Doctor's Pharmacy, and is senior advisor for the Cleveland Clinic Center for Functional Medicine. It's great to see you again, Doc.
Good to see you too, Chris.
So people are knocking on the door saying, come on, Hyman, hook me up. And you're saying no. Why?
You bet. You bet. I get the call every day. Here's the deal, Chris. Ozempic and Wegovy and other related drugs are for type 2 diabetes, and they do take weight off by suppressing appetite in the brain. They make your stomach and intestines empty slower, so you feel full, and it works. But it's really not the best long-term strategy because you have to take it forever. Otherwise, you regain the weight you lose. Plus, there's side effects: nausea, vomiting, constipation, diarrhea. You lose weight, but there's often side effects. And then there's more serious ones like thyroid cancer, pancreatic damage, kidney issues, and other problems. So it's not a free ride, and everybody's looking for the quick fix weight loss solution. The problem is nobody's addressing the elephant in the room. If we look at America, 75% of us are overweight. If you do the math, at $1,700 a month, that's about $425 billion to treat the 75% of Americans who are overweight. That's an enormous amount of money that we just cannot afford as a country. And the truth is that if you look at the root causes, it's our toxic food environment. A really important study showed that if you were given an unlimited amount of ultra-processed food compared to whole real food, you would eat 500 calories more a day. So the best way to cut your appetite is stop eating the processed food and eat real food.
Now, you say when you stop taking it, you're going to gain it all back. I get you on the side effects. I get why I wouldn't want to stay on it forever. One, there's an unknown, and you said thyroid and other things can go sideways. But how do you know I'm going to gain it all back? What if I feel so good about the new me, I go from looking like me to looking like Hyman, and now I want to lock it in. I'm going to stick with my new good habits.
Well, yes, absolutely. If you change your lifestyle and you change your diet and exercise and do all the things we know really help, then you'll be fine. But I had a guy, for example, who was a doctor who had a gastric bypass surgery, lost 200 pounds, and gained it all back because he figured out if he just ate M&Ms one at a time all day long, he could get the sugar and candy in. So unless you deal with the root cause of why people overeat, the toxic food environment, our behavior change, our lifestyle, exercise, it's a losing game. And we just can't afford as a country to give everybody this really expensive drug that is also important for diabetic treatment. And here's the rub. Because everybody's asking their doctor for it for weight loss, doctors can prescribe it off label. And that means that people who really need it with diabetes are not able to get it because it's not available. They just can't manufacture enough of it. So that's the other downside of the problem.
Now, making it at home, I mean, that is going to light up everybody. Is there any understanding to this being safe and easy to do at home?
Yeah, well, there's, you know, these drugs are peptides. Peptides are small little mini proteins that nature makes to do things in our body that it's supposed to do. And these GLP-1 agonists, Ozempic and others, are designed to work on the body's own system. And there are these compounds available online because they're not controlled by the FDA in the way they probably should be. And you can order them from various online websites. You can mix it up yourself and you can give yourself the shot at a fraction of the price. I don't know if that's a good idea or safe because we don't know what these compounds are manufactured with. They don't know if they're safe. We don't know how regulated they are. So I think it's risky business to do that.
There's going to be a lawsuit. Somebody's going to get hurt. And I'm telling you, somebody's going to get hurt, God forbid, and there's going to be a lawsuit. Dr. Mark Hyman, you are absolutely right, but welcome to America. Everybody wants to do it the easy way. Everybody wants to do it. But if they read your book and they listen to your podcast, they'll understand that there's a better road to get where they want to be. And I can't wait to be on the podcast coming up. I can't wait to be there. Be easy on me, all right? Be easy on me.
Thanks, Chris. You know, I will. And, you know, just a quick follow-up. I just had a patient text me a picture today. She lost 134 pounds just by eating real food, getting rid of the crap. And now she's a completely different person. And she has her life back. And she doesn't have to be on a drug that costs $1,700 a month. So it's possible.
2 clinical trials are currently underway to see if the miracle weight loss drug Ozempic could help people with early onset Alzheimer's. This is just the latest disease researchers believe could benefit from Ozempic. Last week, we told you about reports that the drug may help curb addictive behaviors. Ozempic is already approved to treat diabetes, but could its ability to treat weight loss, addiction, and Alzheimer's be too good to be true? Joining us now to break it all down is NewsNation medical contributor Dr. David Montgomery. Doctor, good to have you here. Weight loss, addiction, Alzheimer's, has there ever been a single drug that can help so many conditions?
Yeah, and how about this, Elizabeth? Don't forget about the cardiology piece. It helps heart disease as well. It almost feels like one of those late night commercials, right? You know, wait, but there's more, right?
The infomercial.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But the truth of the matter is, and I've been looking at this, you know, really just sort of trying to get to the bottom of it. The medicine that we see now, Elizabeth, is 2 decades in the making. So the early signs that it helped diabetes and heart disease and addiction, as well as Alzheimer's, was first found in animals before it was done, in the case of Alzheimer's, in these small human trials, before the big clinical trials are started. And it showed lack of or reduction in the accumulation of these amyloid plaques and a reduction in the cognitive decline that comes in people with Alzheimer's disease. I think it's fascinating.
But how does a diabetes drug that's working, you know, on the rest of your body contribute to preventing the buildup of these plaques in the brain?
Yeah, what a fantastic question. One of the things that we know about diabetes is that it is one of the major contributors to dementias of different sorts, but certainly Alzheimer's. And so I think the scientists, having known that, hey, we've got a diabetes drug that works really, really well, it gets past the blood-brain barrier. That's that fortress that protects the central nervous system, one of the best systems. And if it can get in there, what else can it do? And they started doing the trials. So the medicine that causes diabetes to be more better controlled in your system also causes some of the lack of inflammation and the antioxidant effects, as well as causing these plaques to not form, and the data show it.
So is it the anti-inflammatory properties? Is that what the diabetes drug is doing? I mean, when you say that diabetics are prone to get dementia, is that because of inflammation from diabetes?
Partly inflammation, the vascular damage that occurs. Remember, really tiny blood vessels, supplying these nerves. But then they showed this other part, which was it also acts on the misfolded protein, these sort of amyloid and tau proteins that are the hallmark of Alzheimer's disease. It literally slows down the accumulation, and it's a very different thing than diabetes itself.
Currently, there is no treatment for Alzheimer's, although there are several drugs, promising drugs in FDA testing right now. This would be huge if Ozempic can help patients, but we should note it's just for patients in early stages of Alzheimer's, correct?
That is correct. So the trials now are in mild Alzheimer's disease, and I think you've got to sort of, get past that bar before we start seeing if it works in more advanced forms of Alzheimer's disease. I think the proof of concept is still yet to be seen. It is an attractive and very exciting prospect for people, millions of people across the country, and even more across the globe.
Ozempic does not come without side effects. Many of them are extremely unpleasant, and you have to continue to take it for the rest of your life, or in the case of weight loss, the pounds come back. Would the same be true for patients with Alzheimer's or even addiction? In other words, it only works while I'm taking it. Once I stop, I go right back to suffering from this disease.
Yeah, still left to be sorted out. But the attractive part about this, so the reason why I'm really excited about this is, again, going back to these amyloid plaques, not just the hallmark of the disease, but we think it's causal. It causes Alzheimer's disease. If it slows down or prevents the accumulation of these plaques, you can't imagine that if you took the drug away, that you would then sort of have an accelerated accumulation. But time will still tell. It doesn't seem like it will, but we have to look at the data when it comes
out. So when will we know more, doctor? Like, when will we have more results from studies? Because I can tell you, people are desperate for a treatment for Alzheimer's, and we already saw this with weight loss. I mean, there was a run for the doctor's office, put me on Ozempic for people who wanted to lose weight. I can't imagine the run that would now happen if people start learning that, oh my gosh, this can help, stop or slow the progression of Alzheimer's.
Yeah, well, so I think we've got some years. Novo Nordisk, for example, just started the clinical trial, the phase 3 clinical trial in 2021. So we've got some years before we see the data.
The latest weight loss drug that's taken America by storm is hard to find and expensive to keep up. But now people are crossing borders to find Ozempic, sometimes without a prescription. Sloan Glass joins us live. And Sloan, experts say this is another example of medical tourism.
Exactly, Nicole. 9% of Ozempic prescriptions out of the Canadian province of British Columbia are for Americans. It's a staggering statistic, and it's happening because the drug is expensive and on high demand, leaving patients who are desperate for care for their diabetes or weight loss turning towards medical tourism.
Americans crossing the border for more affordable health care or lower cost prescriptions is nothing new. The practice is now becoming a popular way to get the drugs Ozempic or Wegovy. This woman bought her Ozempic in Mexico at a Costco.
I didn't have any issue going through customs or TSA.
But with the click of a few buttons, it's no longer necessary to get on a plane or even leave the couch. Ozempic treats type 2 diabetes, while Wegovy is approved for people with obesity and weight-related concerns. Both semaglutides, meaning they curb appetite. The drugs are expensive. According to GoodRx, the cheapest you can get your hands on Ozempic without insurance is about $915 per month, and many health plans don't cover them.
You're looking at a health equity issue here when you're talking about these weight loss drugs that very often we see in communities who, are financially challenged.
In Mexico, it's far cheaper, and you don't need a prescription.
I get this question a lot about the box of Ozempic that I got from Mexico. I got the starter box, and that box cost me $285 US.
Patients aren't just shopping for a lower price. It's the availability. Ozempic first appeared on the FDA's drug shortage list in August.
They were prepared to give it to diabetics, and that's how much they made. And now all of a sudden you're not only using diabetics, you're using people that are using it for weight loss too. And they just weren't prepared for the increase in patients.
But for those who need it, there's no shortage in Canada. And websites like kenshipmeds.com with the slogan, "A real Canadian pharmacy," will ship right to you. Send in your prescription, and for $15, they will deliver Ozempic to your door. It's becoming a common practice, according to a spokesperson for the BC Ministry of Health. 9% of the 30,000 prescriptions for semaglutide, the drug sold as Ozempic, filled across the province each month of 2022 were for U.S. citizens. That's 22 times higher than the percentage of prescriptions filled for U.S. citizens for all drugs. The price in Canada, similar to that in Mexico.
The popularity is outstanding, but Ozempic is a drug with some serious potential side effects, including thyroid tumors and cancer. This is not a medication to be taken without doctor supervision. Nicole?
Yes, certainly important to note that. Okay, thank you, Sloan.
Back with you now on your Monday morning, and a new warning this morning about Ozempic and Wegovy. Doctors say the type 2 diabetes drugs, popular for weight loss, could cause complications for patients while they're under the knife. Anesthesiologists claim the drugs are slowing digestion down so much that patients still have full stomachs while they're sedated, even if they stopped eating for hours before surgery. Let's bring in NewsNation medical contributor Dr. Dave Montgomery. Hey, Dr. Dave, we know patients have been reporting, unexpected side effects like bloating, balding while taking these drugs. And now the American Society of Anesthesiologists say the drugs could cause complications during surgery. So would you first just explain Ozempic and Wegovy's effects on digestion?
Yeah, good morning to you, Marky. This is all new stuff, right? New experience with this. The way that the two drugs actually work so well for weight loss is that it causes what you have led into we call it gastric emptying. Gastric emptying means that the stomach slows down, and the advantage there is when the stomach stretches to a certain threshold, it sends a signal directly to the brain to shut down the appetite, to shut down the feeding behavior. And the benefit there is you don't start digestion and absorbing calories. But the problem with things like surgery, where we've all been told, hey, before a procedure, don't eat after midnight, don't eat certain things after midnight, that it's still in the stomach, and this can cause trouble during surgery.
And the stomachs need to be empty before most surgeries for breathing purposes, correct?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So some people will have a sort of a natural regurgitation or vomiting effect after anesthesia. The issue is if the stomach is empty, there's not very much to go back up. But even in situations where you're intubated or situations when you're not, if you've got food in your stomach, what may happen is that the food gains entry into your trachea, your windpipe, and that causes real problems. In fact, some people, the anesthesiologists, are concerned because we call it aspiration pneumonia. You literally can develop a process of pneumonia in your lungs, and people are ending up in the ICU. So very important.
Yeah, it could cause injury to the lung, also death, I know. But what's the answer here with all that information that you just gave? If you're someone who does take these medications, should you stop taking it leading up to surgery? Should you just stop eating or fasting, start that long before other patients are supposed to? What are you supposed to do here?
Yeah, I mean, for, physicians who, clear people for surgery, this is all very new to us, and we're having to learn on the fly here. I think what the anesthesiologists are going to do is help guide us, right? So I don't want people to just stop the medicines on their own. And there's some dangers here. We don't know what happens to the body for people who take the weight loss drug if you start and stop. We just don't know what would happen, and we know that there are some risks of stopping. For people who take the medicine for diabetes, this is really important. If you take it for diabetes, it's really good for diabetes. That's why we're talking about it now. We got on the scene for diabetes. You won't have a medicine or coverage for your blood sugar. If you go into a surgery with high blood sugar, you stand the chance of not healing fast enough and properly. You stand the chance of increasing your risk of infections. All of this is really, really important. So you've got to talk to your doctor about it. And the problem is some people aren't getting this medicine from doctors.
Yeah.
That's an issue.
Yeah. It sounds like if you have a procedure on the horizon, just be open and transparent with your surgeon about what's going on, what you're taking. Dr. Dave, always good to see you. Thanks for joining us on a Monday. A new form of Ozempic could be on the way. We've talked about this a lot. The type 2 diabetes drug that's also being prescribed to help people lose weight has to be injected at least once a week. So you've got to get a shot. But pharmaceutical heavyweights are racing to see who can get a pill version on the market first. This would be a big deal. Let's bring in NewsNation medical contributor, Dr. Dave Montgomery. Dr. Dave, good to see you, my friend. Am I correct in assuming that Ozempic in pill form would only drive up its popularity, its demand even higher?
Yeah, good morning to you, Marky. Think about this, right? We know that the drug is effective, right? Think about the numbers of people who are not lining up for an injection, right? I looked at this. The CDC says 1 in 4 adults have an aversion to needles.
Yeah,
those people are not going to get this one, right? So they want the pill form. If it's just as effective, Marky, I think we're looking at a breakthrough.
Okay, now it would be a breakthrough, but what is your take on Ozempic? You know, a lot of people have abused the diabetes drug to fast track weight loss. Are there legitimate cases for prescribing it for weight loss patients? I mean, what happened to just diet and exercise? Where do you stand there?
Yeah, no, so this is a big debate. The clinical trials are really clear, and people like me who are cardiologists are excited about the drug, not just because of its effectiveness with diabetes, which is why it got its first sort of hump in popularity, but also for cardiologists, it actually helps people prevent cardiovascular disease. We don't talk about that a lot. So we know that this has got a lot of effectiveness. Now, when it was discovered that it also caused weight loss, in addition to helping people with diabetes, that seemed like a win-win situation, right? But we've got to keep in mind that it's not for everybody, that there are side effects. Here is my approach to it. If you're going to take the drug in my clinic, you've got to show me that you've made the changes to start losing weight.
Yeah.
So I use about a 5% weight loss.
Yeah, put in some work.
Yeah. About a 5% weight loss. Why? Well, because once I give you the drug, it's going to work even more effectively, and I take it away. We don't want you to go back to your old lifestyle. Here's the last piece. Obesity is a very complicated condition. This is not some pull yourself up by your bootstraps, I can't believe that you're obese type of thing. If it were that simple, people would just go on a diet and it would work. This is really complicated. We've got to be careful by saying, hey, listen, just go move more and eat less.
Yeah, it's a genetic problem for so many Americans. And speaking of efficacy, you know, to the last point that you were making, would a pill version be just as effective as the shots?
Yeah, well, you know, I think there's a lot of people who hope so, including the scientists who are at the bench trying to figure this out. There is a pill form out right now. It's called Rybelsus. And Rybelsus has not shown the same effectiveness across the board. And it's a very simple biology there. So when you take a medication, it goes through the digestion, particularly the liver, and the liver changes the drug. And that's why it's harder for for a pill to meet the same standard, for example, as an injection that does not go through that same sort of step.
And we've heard of the side effects of this drug. You know, you hear about balding, you hear about bloating. Are there any side effects that doctors are concerned about here for patients who keep on taking it, whether it's via injection or via the pill? What concerns you the most for long-term use?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that concerns me is women who are pregnant or women who are planning to be pregnant. The drug maker says, if you are even planning to be pregnant, don't take the drug because it takes a while for the drug to get out of your system, and the drug can cause fetal loss and problems with the mom. Aside from all the GI side effects, which are, as we've seen in the news, raising the ER visits, I think we've got to be really careful with this. And in my clinic, just like in other responsible doctors' clinics, you should follow up with your doctor on a regular basis. We do every month before we go up on the dose, for example, to make sure things that in your blood aren't changing, to make sure you're feeling okay, and to make sure the drug is still serving you. If it's not serving you, you should put it away because the consequences are dire.
And Dr. Dave, just one last question while I still have you. I know a lot of people are probably watching this segment who have tested Ozempic before, they've used it themselves, and their ears are perking up thinking, hey, I could soon get this in pill form. How long do you think it might take before this would actually hit the market and get the green light? Widespread.
Yeah, that's a really important question. I think, when we start seeing things in the public, it is in many cases decades later. In this particular case, the GLPs have been sort of out for a couple decades. But that being said, it's unclear how close they are. If they start murmuring about it, you probably can expect in the next year or so to hear something more about it. But the development, the trials are ongoing. So we'll wait to see.
Probably heard about people talking about drugs like Ozempic to lose weight, even though the medications are meant to treat diabetes. Well, now a new study suggests those drugs may actually go a step further, tackling addiction, as discussed last night on Elizabeth Vargas Reports right here on NewsNation.
One patient who took Ozempic for a weight loss said it was like a switch had flipped in her brain, like all sorts of addictive tendencies vanished. What's going on, do you think? How is this working?
Well, we know that these drugs stimulate a receptor called the GLP-1 receptor. And these receptors are in the brain, in the reward center, in the hippocampus. And so by stimulating them, they may actually reduce the reward gleaned from these kind of addictive behaviors.
Joining me now is the NewsNation medical contributor, Dr. David Montgomery. Doctor, good to talk to you as always. I'm wondering just sort of your general thoughts here on Ozempic and how much either you're prescribing this or your colleagues and friends are prescribing it, and how have you seen it work?
Yeah, Blake, great to be with you. It's obviously very popular, and it's being prescribed a lot, not just for diabetes. Remember, Blake, that the indication for weight loss came after it was proven. This is all merit-based. It was proven to, in a very helpful way, help people lose weight. And cardiologists like me are very happy about it because it actually helps people with cardiac disease or risk factors for heart disease. So we know that there's two main indications. The problem is that makers weren't expecting such a large demand, and so we've got this shortage. I will tell you, and
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but it was interesting to hear you talk as a cardiologist that you also say it helps reduce heart disease risk, because there's a belief out there among some, if not many, in the medical community that not only does this help with type 2 diabetes, not only does this help with weight loss, but if we can show a few of the other things as well, reduce heart risk disease, treat drug and alcohol addiction, prevent dementia, fight cancer. Honestly, doctor, it almost sounds too good to be true. We want it to be true, but is it too good to be true?
Yeah, it does seem that way. I think what's very clear is a lot of this stuff is been proven in the data. And I do want people to understand that this is not newfangled. This is 20 years in the making. The first GLP agonist was used in 2005.
So is this if you say it's been proven in the data, like, is this a super drug, I guess, doctor? Is that
well, it depends on it depends on how you define super drug. Here's what we know it does. It reverses it helps people reverse their A1C. That means that it helps diabetes really well. It helps people lose weight. And the newer data is suggesting that it can also do other things. Now, the same reward center that has people get reward when they eat is the same reward center that addictions sort of landed in the frontal lobes, as the doctor was saying on the Elizabeth Vargas's show. And what we know is that, it's all in the same region. If the GLPs can affect weight loss, why couldn't it, in fact, affect some of these other things? So if you call that a wonder drug, if you call that a super drug, then that's in fact what it is. Here's what the problem is. We don't know what the long-term consequences are, and still time will tell.
Interesting. All right, Dr. David Montgomery, thank you for your time as always. Appreciate it, sir.
Great to be with you, Blake.
Ozempic is the hottest weight loss treatment out there. We've been talking about it for months. It's expensive. It's also really hard to find.
Yeah, it's so competitive. People are buying it off the shelves. And now there are imitations of the drug on the market with potentially deadly consequences. Kelsey is here with more details.
Adrian, you really have millions of people across the globe taking Ozempic, and now the FDA, this is concerning. They're reporting that 2 people have died and 3 others have been hospitalized after taking fake Ozempic. And health experts across the world, they're now pleading for people to make sure they're taking the real thing.
These are images released by the maker of the drug company, Novo Nordisk, showing authentic Ozempic pens and packaging on the left. and the counterfeit ones on the right. They released the images after the manufacturer learned about reports that fake Ozempic had ended up on the shelves of an unnamed American pharmacy.
You need to know what the medicine looks like.
Dr. Jill Wagoner says spotting the fake Ozempic is the first line of defense.
And if that packaging does not look authentic, it is a problem and you shouldn't do it.
Ozempic was originally designed to help people with diabetes. What makes a fake so dangerous, says Dr. Wagoner, is that the main ingredient contains a drug, semaglutide, while the fakes may include insulin.
The insulin, if you're somebody who doesn't need it, can kill you. So you literally can drop your blood sugar so low that you have seizures or you go into a coma or can get, permanently injured or die.
The FDA is aware of the fake products, saying it vigilantly monitors the internet for fraudulent or unapproved products and has issued warning letters to stop the distribution of illegally marketed semaglutide. Dr. Wagoner also says common sense needs to play a role.
If it is a medication and it is retailing for $1,200 a month and you are getting it from someplace in the box, which is supposed to be the same medication, and you are getting it for, less than a tenth of that, something ought to go off. Some kind of alarms ought to go off.
Dr. Wagoner also says that it's very important that you make sure that you are working with a reputable physician, that this is a treatment for a medical condition. It's not just cosmetic.